A call sounded from the center of the clearing, and all around them voices began to quiet. Riverpaw craned her neck to see over the heads of the crowd, catching sight of Lightstar's white pelt as the ThunderClan leader clawed her way up the great oak's trunk and onto one of the lower branches. 3 other cats followed her, finding a place to look down upon the crowd. One of the cats, a gray tom with speckled white fur, sat on the lowest branch, gazing out over the clearing with green eyes. His graying muzzle was proof of his elderly age. Lightstar was seated beside him, pure white fur glowing. Beside Lightstar, barely visible, sat a dark ginger she-cat with yellow eyes. She watched the gathered cats proudly, back straight. Beside her, and nearest the trunk of the oak, a gray tom with large amber eyes perched. Riverpaw wondered which leader led which clan. Her question was answered a moment later when the elderly speckled tom spoke. RiverClan has had a plentiful hunting season. Fish are swimming well in the streams, and so far there have been little sign of 2 legs. However, we did have some trouble with a group of rogues hunting in our territory. We managed to chase them away, but we have no idea where they were heading. From the scent markings we found, there could be more as well. A few concerned murmurs sounded from the clans, but the RiverClan leader raised his tail and the murmurs ceased. Lightstar stood next and gave her report, mentioning nothing more than that prey was running well and Moonclad had announced her pregnancy with Duststorm, the ThunderClan deputy's kits. Riverpaw realized that her, Echopaw, and Stonepaw's apprenticeship would have been old news by now, as a full moon had already passed since they returned to the clan. When Lightstar sat once more, Fallen Star stood. Shadow Clan as well. We have 3 new kits: Frog Kit, Ice Kit, and Robin Kit. Prey is plentiful, and our warriors are strong. She sat down. Riverpaw overheard slight mutters, as though some in the crowd did not quite believe the Shadow Clan leader. The other leaders ignored this, and the final cat, the Wind Clan leader, stood. Lately there has been a strong scent of rogues in our territory as well. We presumed it was simply a group passing by, since they did not seem particularly interested in hunting. But hearing that they have also been seen in RiverClan is disturbing. If we sent them again, I fear that all 4 clans may have a problem with prey stealers. This time, the murmurs were loud and urgent, and Riverpaw watched the surrounding cats with unease. There was quite a bit of anger within their voices, and the she-cat wondered if this was really such a noteworthy piece of news. They must deal with intruders all the time, what with ThunderClan always patrolling their borders, talking of battle. Riverpaw had always assumed it was a common occurrence. Atop the branch, Lightstar raised her tail, and the clearing slowly fell silent. "Thank you, Owlstar, for your concern. However, I'm sure there is no cause for worry. RiverClan dealt with the rogues well, and there is no shortage of prey at the Greenleaf. If rogues are spotted, I am positive each clan is well prepared to deal with them on their own." Yowls of approval sounded below, and Owlstar narrowed his eyes. "That may be true, but there is always room for caution." Turning his gaze forward again, he finished his report in a booming voice. "Rogues aside, our clan is well fed and strong. We have 2 new warriors, Darkmist and Featherflight." Calls of approval rang from the crowd, loudest from one clan, of course, and Riverpaw spotted the 2 newest warriors with their heads high. As the Wind Clan leader stepped back, all 4 leaders jumped from the oak's tree branches. This, Riverpaw realized, was the end of the gathering. Looking around, she could see the clans separating, a few sharing 1 or 2 more words with each other. She caught sight of Deeplake murmuring to 3 others whom Riverpaw guessed were the other medicine cats. There was a silver tabby she-cat, a small black she-cat, and a brown tom. Deeplake's expression was serious as she talked to the 3, and Riverpaw felt a spark of curiosity flicker in her chest. "ThunderClan! To the bridge!" Lightstar's voice rang out, and the apprentice tore her eyes from the medicine cats to follow Ashheart out of the clearing. Sunlight beamed into the apprentice den, making Riverpaw squint against the glare. Slowly, the she-cat sat up, stretching and blinking away her lingering drowsiness. With a yawn, she realized the fur beneath her eyes was wet. "I must have dreamt last night," the brown cat realized. An ache of sorrow and anger accompanied the thought, but Riverpaw was accustomed to it now. She managed to push the feelings away, standing and poking her head out of the apprentice den. Activity in the camp had begun already, cats padding to and fro on various chores. Riverpaw spotted Duststorm emerging from the nursery. The ThunderClan deputy had become a regular visitor to the Queens ever since Mooncloud moved in. The she-cat was barely showing, but her mate insisted that she start preparing early. Shifting her gaze to the other side of the camp, Amberclaw, Robinfire, and Nightclaw had apparently returned from a hunting patrol, depositing their catch on a newly stocked fresh kill pile. Outside the Elder's Den, Larkmoon, Featherpath, and Patchclaw were sharing tongues in a ray of sunshine, for once not seeming to gossip or complain about anything. As Riverpaw withdrew, she realized Lightstar and the majority of the warriors were nowhere to be seen. The she-cat sat back, curling her tail over her paws in contemplation. When the clan had returned from the gathering, Riverpaw saw Deep Lake pull Lightstar aside and share a few quiet words with the leader. The apprentice hadn't thought much of it at the time, but over the next few days she noticed the amount of patrols double. Lightstar ordered every warrior to be on alert for unfamiliar scents, and since then, the white she-cat had been rather withdrawn. Perhaps Owlstar's warning of rogue invaders had somehow frightened Deep Lake, and the effect had rippled since then. Riverpaw couldn't comprehend why, though. In her mind, it still did not seem like much of a threat. Shaking her head, the apprentice glanced around the den. The only other cat was Stonepaw, still sleeping deeply. Just as Riverpaw was about to leave the tom to rest, the entrance rustled and Blackpool's head appeared. "Ah, there you are. Wake Stonepaw, will you? Ashheart and I thought it would be fun to have a joint training session today." Riverpaw nodded, feeling excited at the thought of training with her friend. Ashheart had not allowed her to interact much with Echopaw and Stonepaw while on duty, seeing as he wanted her to step out of her comfort zone. Perhaps the tom was finally beginning to relax and would give her a break. As Blackpool withdrew, Riverpaw prodded Stonepaw on the shoulder. "Hey, wake up! We're training together today!" Stonepaw stirred, grumbling. Riverpaw let out a small meow of laughter and kneaded his side with her paws. "Come on, this is the first time we actually get to spar with each other." All right, I'm up." Stonepaw stood slowly and stretched, reaching his front legs forward as far as he could. As he shook his head, clearing the clinging sleep, he smiled at Riverpaw. "We get to fight, eh?" The she-cat grinned in return. "Don't get cocky. I'll knock you in the sand if you let me." "We'll see." The two apprentices made their way out of the den and across the clearing where Ashheart and Blackpool sat waiting. The black-furred tom waved a paw as they approached. "Here come the paws." Ashheart was getting impatient. "I was not impatient, Blackpool," Ashheart grumbled. "But you two should try to wake up on time in the future." "Sorry, Ashheart." Riverpaw dipped her head and her mentor simply waved his tail, pushing past the bramble barrier into the forest beyond. The four cats made their way up the slope and out of camp. On their way toward the training area, Echopaw and her mentor, Tigersong, emerged from the undergrowth. The excitable tortoiseshell was carrying 2 squirrels and a mouse, neck bent with the weight. She dropped her catch when she saw Riverpaw and Stonepaw. "Where are you guys going? Are you training together?" "Sparring match," Stonepaw explained shortly, and Echopaw stomped her front paws with envy. "No fair! We never get to spar with Riverpaw. Tigersong, can I go too?" "We just got back from hunting all morning, Echopaw. I don't think even you have—" The tabby she-cat trailed away, then let out a sigh, smiling. "I don't know what I'm saying. Of course you have the energy." "All right, but let's get this prey back to the clan first and eat. I won't have my apprentice making me look bad by fighting on an empty stomach." Echopaw nodded happily and picked up her prey again. With a flick of her tail, she bounded clumsily away, tripping over the squirrel's tail. Tigersong shook her head, but her smile never faded as she followed the young she-cat, disappearing once again. The 4 cats continued on their way. As they jumped over a fallen birch, Stonepaw murmured, "So, what does the winner get after today's session?" "Is this becoming a challenge?" Riverpaw cast a mischievous look at her friend. "It was always a challenge, Riverpaw, and now we have 3 contenders." She grinned and thought for a moment. "How about loser has to do the winner's apprentice duties for a full day?" "Week. 3 days." "Deal. You're never going to win." Stonepaw laughed and flicked Riverpaw's ear with his tail, then seemed to feel awkward for a moment as he hurriedly meowed. We'll see." They arrived at the training area, the soft earth shifting under paw. Ashheart and Blackpool took a seat on the edge of the clearing, gesturing for their apprentices to take their positions. "Should we wait for Tigersong?" Blackpool murmured, and Ashheart waved a paw in dismissal. "No, they'll join in when they get here." "All right, then," Blackpool meowed, addressing the 2 apprentices. "Today we will have a simple sparring match. Cloths sheathed, of course. Show your mentors what you've learned. And don't disappoint us," he winked. Stonepaw stood opposite Riverpaw, determination alive in his eyes. The 2 tensed, ready. For a moment, there was silence. Then Ashheart shouted, "Begin!" and the apprentices raced to confront each other. Stonepaw darted beneath Riverpaw, paw flashing out in an effort to trip her. Riverpaw leapt over him and twisted in midair, attempting to land on top of him. Stonepaw grunted as she fell onto his back, but quickly recovered and rolled to disengage her. Riverpaw crushed beneath his weight, let go of his back, and darted away, facing him once more. This time, Riverpaw was the one to dash forward and trip him. Her paw connected with his back legs, and she felt a surge of triumph as he toppled sideways. His belly exposed, the she-cat reared to batter at the soft gray fur. Before she could land a hit, however, Stonepaw's rear legs rose and caught her in the stomach. With a heave, he threw her off, and she landed a few tail lengths away, gasping but unhurt. The two apprentices righted themselves and stared at each other, considering the other's weaknesses. "He's a good fighter," Riverpaw admired, seeing the energy sparking in the Tom's deep blue eyes. Suddenly, Stonepaw raced forward, and as he neared, Riverpaw saw an opening on his left side. Seizing the opportunity, she immediately darted to the side and rammed the Tom. He gasped, flung to the side, and landed in the dust. She pinned him, panting and smiling at her victory. The gray apprentice let out a chuckle. "Best out of 3? Before Riverpaw could respond, the bushes to her right rustled, and Echo-Paw emerged. The she-cat immediately seemed to grasp what had happened, giving her brother a playful grin. "She got you!" "Shut up, Echo. We're doing best out of 3. This is only the beginning." The tortoiseshell laughed and turned to her mentor. "Can I be next?" Tiger Song watched Riverpaw and Stonepaw as the two straightened, shaking the dust from their fur. "Are you two ready for a round with a fresh fighter?" "Stonepaw can take this one," Riverpaw meowed, and Stonepaw bowed his head playfully. "Don't mind if I do." Riverpaw took a seat next to Ashheart as the fight began. The dabbled warrior leaned toward her. "You missed an opportunity to use the jump and tackle I showed you." Ashheart flicked an ear, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. "You could have ended the battle faster that way." "I didn't even think of it," Riverpaw mewed, realizing that Tom was right. "Never mind that. You did very well. Let's see if you can spot any missed opportunities as these two fight." They fell silent as Echo-Paw and Stonepaw tussled in the sand. Stonepaw clearly had the strength and stamina, but Echo-Paw was slippery and quick, evading most of the Tom's attacks. The tortoiseshell apprentice continued to batter the Tom, but he stayed standing, and eventually her moves began to slow. As the she-cat withdrew, Stonepaw took his chance. He raced toward her and unleashed a relentless barrage. Echo-Paw's dodging skills were impressive, but it was clear she was tired. Finally, a paw caught her in the side, making her stumble, and before she had a chance to recover, Stonepaw had her pinned. "That's one win for me," the gray Tom teased, and Echo-Paw shrugged him off. She was smiling good-naturedly, apparently not too let down by the loss. "We'll give you two a moment to catch your breath before the next fight," Tiger Song meowed. "In the meantime, I want to know what everyone thought of their strategies." Ashheart and Tiger Song immediately looked at Blackpool, who had been remarkably quiet throughout the session. Riverpaw had begun to think the lazy Tom had lapsed into a daydream, but as soon as he noticed the others looking at him, he gave a small smile. "Stonepaw, your resilience is commendable, and I understand why you decided to wait until your enemy tired herself out. Smart. But in a real battle, you would have come away with more than a few scars. You can't always take a beating like that and expect to win. By the time your opponent is done, you could be just as finished." Summary. Great. But let's work on looking to interrupt an enemy's momentum instead of waiting for it to stop naturally. The gray apprentice lowered his head in understanding, and Riverpaw blinked at the black warrior. It was impressive. The Tom seemed to pay so little attention to his surroundings, yet he clearly knew what was going on. Next, Tiger Song launched into a breakdown of Echo-Paw's strategy and room for improvement, mainly finding a way to do more damage with less blows. The tabby she-cat beckoned Ashheart into the clearing and, using the same evasive technique as her apprentice had used, demonstrated how there were openings many would not even consider that could trip up even the most sturdy opponent. As Riverpaw watched the two warriors fight, she felt a warm spark in her chest. It was a familiar feeling now, a mix of admiration and resolve. When Riverpaw first arrived, she thought she would hate battle training. She may be good at it, but had grown to despise it in the Legion. Now, she saw another side to it, and had even become excited when practicing. It was more than survival. There was skill and passion to it. She saw that in how Tiger Song weaved around Ashheart's defenses, and how the Tom twisted to meet his opponent despite her obvious grace and speed. As the brown cat watched, she realized how far she had come with the clan. Not 2 moons ago, she had felt unsure about her worthiness to become a warrior. Now, she could only feel determination. She was going to become as skilled as these mentors, and she was going to do it with her friends and clanmates behind her. There was a connection there, and she was surprised by how surely she knew that. Tiger Song finally withdrew, having successfully managed to grasp Ashhart's scruff and her teeth. She beckoned Echo Paw and Riverpaw forward. You two next. This should be an interesting matchup. Echo Paw, you'll need more than speed here. The tortoiseshell nodded firmly, and Riverpaw took her stance. Ashhart let out a call, and the battle began. Riverpaw wasn't sure if it was the fact that she rarely faced such quick, slender cats, or if Echo Paw simply learned faster than she did. But to everyone's surprise, Echo Paw was the one who ended the fight, pinning the brown cat to the ground. Smiling at her friend, Riverpaw shrugged her off and meowed. That was great, Echo Paw. The tortoiseshell was beaming, seeming a bit surprised by the victory as well. Riverpaw couldn't help but notice the annoying spark of sourness at her loss. I'll have to get her next time, the she-cat thought. Don't get too used to it, sis, Stonepaw said from the place next to Blackpool. We still have a few more fights before we have our real winner. The two she-cats laughed, and the next match began. It wasn't until hours later, when the clouds were tinted with orange, that the three cats collapsed in the dust, exhausted. Ashhart padded over to Riverpaw, looking down at her with a grin. I think that concludes training for the day. He looked at the others, then raised his tail. Let's all head back to the clearing. I believe we have a victor to celebrate. Don't feed his ego, Ashhart. His head's big enough already, Echo Paw meowed. Stonepaw sat up, legs shaking and eyes full of triumph. No apprentice duties for the next 3 days, he yelled happily, and received a playful flick on the ear from Blackpool. That isn't how it works, Paw. You still have to do your chores, win or lose. Stonepaw gave his mentor a disbelieving look, but didn't argue. Riverpaw and Echo Paw held back chuckles as the three followed their mentors back to camp. Riverpaw watched the foliage overhead, dappled golden, light filtering through as the sun sank, and remarked at the peaceful feeling in her chest, marred only by a sour tinge at her defeat. I hope we get to spar again soon. This was an amazing day.